Greetings, 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 greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian, know nothing, control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening, replay. Always appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening, replay. This is the vault, episode 634, public school education. Just want to thank everybody for tuning in live, listening, replay. And we just want to go ahead and thank everybody for sure, like we have. And we're going to go into this episode. And this episode is not to demonize or put down in any way academia and studying. Most of the trustees that go through our training program are actually, we have lawyers that have gone through our training program. We have individuals that have, we've had enrolled agents go through. Larissa has went through the training program, and so she works with trustees in that capacity, ladies and gentlemen. So we're gonna talk about on this episode something that a lot of trustees run into, and it's really because they have a public school education. We're not demonizing. Once again, we're just stating the facts. Because a lot of people are running into issues, but they don't really know why they're having an issue. Well, we got to talk about the fact that the issue came from a specific source. Ladies and gentlemen, if you did not go to a trade school to teach you how to know a specific craft, you were trained to be an employee from public school. Some people say, "Oh, Trust Christian Vote. My parents were entrepreneurs." Yeah, and did you become an entrepreneur? That's the question we ask some of our trustees. Some of them have, some of them haven't. That's a choice. Once again, public school has employees. They're teaching and training, embodying. You know how the young kids say they vibing? They're vibing on recall. They're vibing on teaching. They're vibing on those things. And so when we engage with these particular individuals or in this environment, it was one of those things where when we finally got educated with one of our mentors, he's like, Christian, public school is a conflict of interest. He was like, who in public school as a school teacher can you go back and actually get them to mentor you to achieve your goals and dreams now that you've gotten older? And it was definitely an eye opener because sure, some of us can say that some of us can go back to public school and say that that's the case, and not all of us can. It's not a blaming on public school. Some people can say, "Oh, Trust Christian, is it the public school fault?" Ultimately, it's the family's estate fault. And if it's not the family estate fault, then we go to the public general welfare education, which was created by the Rockefellers, and the Board of Education is funded by the Rockefellers. So how do we change this Trust Christian involved? How do we need to change it in a negative way, or do we just need to improve it? Well, ladies and gentlemen, Trust Christian involved in this particular episode, we're not here to demonize public school education. We would just say that public school education that doesn't involve an entrepreneur route is a disadvantage. Why? Because, ladies and gentlemen, if you live in a free enterprise system, if you live in a system that is made for the entrepreneur first, it's not made for the employee first, it's made for the entrepreneur first. If an individual does not come through that system, the system that was supposed to teach them the jurisdiction, which most people say they went to history class, social studies, right? Did they go to a law class? Did they go to most people didn't. One of the schools we went to, fortunately, when we were coming up, maybe it was at a private school, but it was still giving out. We learned Latin, so that prepped us for the law. So when you're speaking English and people say, "Oh, English is the bastardized language," yeah, but have you taken the time to do the research on the actual real language, the Indo, or the actual root of the language? People want to sit here and demonize the language and say, "Oh, English is this," but then are you learning the roots so you can actually know what the words mean when you're saying them? Like people think you're supposed to be nice. So public school education, maybe some people didn't get the root. All education isn't created equal. Right. But remember, there is a public school education. It's actually a general flat education that you would think that most students across the country can get. Well, okay, it's not created equal. It's based off of a taxpayer and people paying into the zip code in their school system, people being involved in the Parent Student Association, PSA, whatever that is, whatever they have for that. And so, once again, ladies and gentlemen, trustees, we're talking about this from a trustee perspective. Trustees come to the vote all the time. Oh, trust Christian vote. I'm having challenges just getting going. What do you mean? You have challenges getting going. Are you an entrepreneur? Because if you're an entrepreneur, you're a goal setter, correct? Not all entrepreneurs are created equal, but if you're an entrepreneur, you're an active goal setter, correct? But then when people, oh, I move into trusteeship, now I have a challenge with setting goals and accomplishing them. Partially because people don't have a support system around them, and then partially because less than 10% of the population is setting goals, writing them down, putting dates in them, and achieving them, ladies and gentlemen. So once you put goals down on a piece of paper, you're not using public school education thought process. Public school education has trained the population to get educated, to get a job, and retire when they're 65 or 70. Public school education has trained people to get even. They tell you, they try to convince you to go into debt. Some say sometimes they don't, but for the most part, the overall system. Hey, if you get a degree, you're likely to make all this money supposedly over the lifetime of your life. Yeah. So the odds of that happening are what? Do you even know the percentage of the population that has this post-secondary degree? And think about it. What is the benefit of you getting a post-secondary degree when you're going to be in debt? And not only that, you're going to come out and you're actually may end up working for somebody. So it's not a lot of bennies, but hey, people want they want what they want, the dental plan. They want a 401k. They want a the IRAs, Oh, come on, they match my benefits, I'll work. I'm gonna get paid $20 plus an hour. This is where we are, ladies and gentlemen. We are at a time in history where the American population is getting divided because some people have educations what they call financial literacy. That's why you see this huge movement on financial literacy. Oh man, I need to get financially illiterate, financial literate. What do you mean? You read a daggone Barron's dictionary and the Black's Law dictionary, you got it covered. But most people don't have it covered because they don't know the words. See how we get back to the public school education was supposed to educate us at least in law and in the words so we can go out here and do commerce properly. You come out, they advertise debt. They don't tell us to do group economics. The system doesn't promote that. What system doesn't promote that? Well, clearly, public school doesn't promote group economics. We're not mad that the commercial businesses aren't. But what happened to public school? The come together kumbaya session. So what happens is you see people over an extended period of time, and the cliff is just getting steeper, ladies and gentlemen. Why? See, we sit in the rooms where people actually talk about the stats. First of all, people are living longer. They're living longer. So that means healthcare costs don't go down, they go up. They say, oh, yeah, trust Christian in the vault. We got a growing population. They're depending on healthcare more. Why would this population be dependent on healthcare? This population is dependent on healthcare because they're not doing healthy things. The society, even through public school, did it educate the society to be super healthy? Oh, is it the system's fault? Listen, if it's not the public school education's fault, then it's only going to be the parents. It's only two sources that we can blame. So we're going to take responsibility on the parent side, sure. And the public school has to take responsibility for the rhetoric that's being taught. The rhetoric. The rhetoric of go to school, get a good education, and get a good job. If this system is not challenged, if this system isn't challenged, they say, oh, trust Christian involved. We're not going to challenge public school. It gave us our ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. And that's the benefit of this system. is it gave people their ABCs and one, two, threes. What happened to all of these people that are coming out so financially educated, numerate and otherwise, coming out being financially independent? They say the average. They say at least 50% of the Americans that are working don't have $10,000 in the savings account. The working class. Ladies and gentlemen, you think about these small things. Oh, Trust Christian, I've been working for 5 years and I don't got $5,000 saved up. The average American doesn't even, they say average now, so you got to know where you fall, doesn't even save that type of money a year. How are you going to have $1 million at the end of your life and you spending money going on world tours with your girl tours around the world, guys? How are you going to save a million, 1.2? You're not factoring inflation right now. They're telling you the numbers for the day. So they tell you you need 1.2 to $2.4 million so you can have a dividend that can kick off to pay for your lifestyle. Once again, you're not just paying for rent, you're paying for healthcare expenses. So public school says, oh man, we're not going to teach you how to be financially independent, and we're not going to teach you how to stay healthy. Well, we said we are going to teach you how to stay healthy, but it's up to you when you get out. Ladies and gentlemen, what defines the system is the result. What defines the system is the output. Because the American system is a free enterprise business system, there are some people that go through that system of public school and still come out an entrepreneur. They still come out a business person. They didn't get chewed up and spit out. They came out, but they opened their eyes up. They said, oh man, I want something else. And they actually went for it. They understood their divine nature. They knew it was sink or swim. Public school education, does it train us to set goals? Does public school says we're not supposed to cheat? First of all, in business, that's all you do is cheat. Now, you may not cheat your customer, but you cheat meaning that, okay, for example, y'all say, what does that mean, Church Christian? First of all, when you look at the competition, aren't you cheating? When you look at the competition, you shouldn't even pay attention to the competition. But because you're paying attention to the competition, you're seeing things that they're doing. And you may see things that they're doing and things that you're doing. You say, you know, I actually know how to make that better now. So it's a competitive market. Public school, it's not competitive. It's slightly competitive. But what happens when we see athletes, we see professional athletes not transition into business? We see artists not transition into business. So we see a financial literacy problem that they keep trying to identify, and it's coming from the lack of education, quote unquote, from the public school. Now, we're not saying that they're supposed to do it because that's your family. We have to educate our families. We have to get around educated families. We have to network with other families. We are not leaving it up to the government to educate our families. But in turn, there are many that will. A public school education is a general welfare education. If you want an elite education, you want a business-like education, you study and you provide that and you get our children, and our children are around that. Simple as that, ladies and gentlemen. Public school education, nothing against it. Clearly, they say, oh man, I gotta send my kid to school somewhere. Yeah, just know the teachers there are employees. Remember, children don't learn what you say, they learn by what you do. Remember, people learn directly and indirectly. So when we see people that are making necessarily competitive decisions, we see them making real everyday humdrum monotonous decisions. So how do we overcome these challenges? Well, first of all, we got to go seek out alternative education. So we'll give you all some of the alternative education. We were actually listening to a really good book right now. It's a leadership book. So the first thing you do is you start putting yourself in a leadership role and you start taking leadership. Leadership involves you being in a position where you're you're responsible and people are looking at you in case you fail. A lot of people don't want that responsibility. But definitely leadership. One of the skill sets that you seek out leadership classes, you seek out leadership books. There's some really good leadership books out there. We know that's a skill set that we know as a trustee and as a successful operator that you most likely are going to have. So we definitely want to say that. Another thing that we would say that someone will have is communication skills. So we definitely would say at the vault, we've taken communications classes. You want to take communications classes. You want to be able to read body language. You want to be, because remember, as a senior trustee, you're negotiating deals. As a business person, you're negotiating deals. So you want to just be able to improve your communication. These are really highlight points for successful operators. Even if you're not a successful operator, a CEO has to be a great leader. So it's still a executive level conversation that we're having, even if it's not ownership or operator. We're still talking about executive leadership. So once again, how do you get the results that you're looking for? Is once again seeking out leadership, seeking out a mentorship. People that have the results, the fruit on the tree, as the mentors used to say. Then we get into communication. Communication is one of the more important things because if you gotta be able to communicate effectively. You gotta be able to actively listen, as some of the mentors say. You gotta be able to actively listen. These are things that you do. A lot of people think they're doing it, but they're not. And it's a challenge because if you don't come from a system that people actively listen, if people didn't answer your questions directly, people are going to have challenges with that. So it's important to be able to give direct answers and get direct answers. And that comes from training and that comes from communication skills being improved. We could always talk about, everybody can say, oh, the business acumen, the business acumen. Uh, it's not so much the business acumen. People talk about financial education. You definitely we would say you want to brush up on some law. We've had a bunch of trustees go through the trustee training program. We actually just had a trustee reach back out to us from Australia, and they're in law school in Australia, ladies and gentlemen. So there are a lot of people that they understand the importance of very diverse education backgrounds, and so this particular episode is just sharing that there's diversity, and once again, even having a law background. We actually got a trustee right now that's going to law school. They actually have a medical practice too. So they're not a doctor, but they definitely have a medical practice, a business as a medical practice, and they're actually going to law school. So it's interesting. And they went through trustee training, fully suited and booted, trusteeship, foundationship. So really excited about that. So it's not to say that, we talked about that. Remember when we talked about that with our mentor when we first came into trusteeship? It was like, man, I need to go to first thing. I remember first year in trusteeship, I was like, man, I need to learn accounting because I need to be the accountant for the trust. And that was the first mistake that most employee mindsets make is you focus on doing it all by yourself and you get a lot of sole trustees that go through the program or just sole trustees out there. Even a lawyer, they don't even advise having multiple trustees all the time. Sometimes they'll just say, "Oh yeah, you could be the trustee over your property," and it's like, well, if you're the sole trustee, you don't, you're not really the sole, you're not the most educated person in trust in general. So the goal is to go find people that are very competent and actually get them to do their job. And so uh, one of the things that we live by is you rather have 1% of 100 people's efforts than 100% of your own. And the reason is because it's that this delegation, it's only so many hours in a day. And there's so many trustees that don't understand that. They don't know how to find good talent. We talk to them all the time about it. When we talk about accountants, ladies and gentlemen, y'all don't want to hear the truth, but we're going to share it anyways. Which is there are trustees that'll get in the program and they get stuck. Something that's a public school education thought process. What does stuck look like? Stuck looks like, oh, trust Christian Vault. I called two accounting firms and they didn't give me what I wanted. I called three accounting firms. They didn't give me what I wanted. Okay, I called five accounting firms. They didn't give me what I wanted. Trust Christian Vault. Hey, don't even think anybody's getting this far. Most people aren't even getting the five. They're not even getting. They're not getting the five. So, oh, trust Christian Vault. I got the seven accounting firms, and I called different ones, and they're not able to handle trust. So what's the point of us saying that? They make an excuse and they find roadblocks and they let these roadblocks get in the way. First of all you gotta do is check back in with Trust Christian and Vote, and we find out what are you saying to these people and who did you really interview. Maybe you didn't interview quality and competent people, but you're interviewing people that can do accounting for the trust. And so when you all are talking to, I got an issue with the accountant. The accountant. It's always about the accountant. The accountant. The accountant. You don't even understand. We just hear the whole term the whole time about the accountant. Okay, are you going to keep working to find an accountant? Or are you going to just say, oh, I didn't find an accountant yet? And this is just giving people the heads up that that's the case. I don't know. Why? Because the public school education didn't tell you to get an accountant. They tell you, oh man, I just got to take and do my personal taxes from my job. But when you have a real business attorney, when you have a proper enrolled agent and people around you of the sort, you make it a point to have teams. You make it to have diversity in your team. Simple as that. We're going to have a great account. We might have two or three. We were thinking about that today because somebody was talking against the vision. As soon as somebody started talking against your vision, you might as well just go find somebody else on the team. Find somebody else that's waiting in the wing to replace that person. Once again, so you're never going to be without talent. See, people aren't abundant in resources for talent because they're not actively seeking talent and because they don't understand that it's a priority to seek a board of trustees with talent. Some people say, oh, do I need to put them on the board? They don't have to be a voting trustee, but they definitely are going to be an oversight measure, a compliance measure. Is it too easy to just blame it on public school? Sure, public school. Would you sit there all day for? To come out so you don't know how to manage your finances? So you can come out and not know how to manage your family estate any better than going to get a job? Because when you're in trusteeship, you have to think about growing the assets. And it's not at a fixed rate. Sometimes it's an exponential rate. What happens if you get laid off from the job? I mean, come on, real things happen. Some people say, what happens if the business fails? That's not the mentality of an entrepreneur. It's not the same, ladies and gentlemen. Public school teaches people to think of failure. Oh man, if I fail, that's going to be bad. No, if the account goes to zero, you build it back up. You grow, you go back into growth mode. Not victim mode, not debt mode. You go back into growth mode. You go back into generating finance. You go back to what got you capital in the first place. Is it that simple? It's that simple, ladies and gentlemen. It's really just that simple. Most people are not setting goals for their business or a business and moving forward on those goals. That's really that simple. You set a goal to get a job, right? Right. Then you got a job, right? Right. It's the same thing. Just setting a goal. Most people don't set up goals properly because they have a public school education. If they had education from their family and they taught them how to set goals, great. But then at the same time, we're going to talk about public school education from a holistic perspective, where we went to physical education. Then you see grown adults that are saying, oh man, I'm not going to be physical. What are you talking about? You have to maintain the temple of the living God. What are you talking about? You're not maintaining your health, but you're out here. They say you can't serve two masters, right? But y'all serving two masters with the public school education. Oh man, I'ma just slave away for the money, and then I'm not gonna focus on the temple or the living God. That's how you set proper goals. So you got a physical goal. You have a financial goal. Do you have a mental goal? Do you have an educational goal? I'm going to educate myself a certain amount of hours every single day for trusteeship. You don't even want to know how many trustees come in, and that's an excuse. Oh man, I want to be in trusteeship. I want to help my family out. Man, sometimes I'm good, sometimes I'm busy. Yeah, lack of consistency. So sometimes they're great and sometimes they're not. For the most part, when you see trustees that are studying, we got one trustee, we sent videos in 7 days, 5 videos, hour long. They've already digested. Outside of the fact that they have a business and a job, trustee, and just had a newborn, still watched at least 5 hours worth of content in 7 days. At least. And actually watched, the trustee reported that they watched each, at least a few of the videos 3 times. Minimum. And still stated they're digesting the content. So where's your study habits, sir? They always come to Trust Christian. Trust Christian, what am I going to measure myself by? What makes me a good trustee? How well you're studying. How well you're investing in your education. You think about it. People hesitate on paying for their education. That's the wildest thing to think about. People want to hold back their personal money on investing in their education, but they want a loan from the government, from the public school, to give them an education. Well, It's about teams. It's about building our teams, about delegation, understanding that, cheating, quote unquote, in that respect. It's cheating meaning it's not, it's like, okay, cheating is an example of, okay, if it's five of us over here working in one trust, and then there's one person working in another trust, don't you think the five of us are going to outwork that one person if we're all working? Right. So that's why we're talking about putting together a team. You're modeling your family estate after some of the top family estates out there. Modeling your family trustee situation behind some of the senior trustees out there in the public. But once again, they're in private settings. If you can get in those behind closed doors with them, you can see what's really going on. So we wanted to at least talk about that. Wanted to talk about it. What are you studying? Are you studying public education? We get trustees all the time come back to us. They'll say, "Oh, I was studying this, studying that," but okay. Just like we had the one trustee go back and listen to some videos three times, we're going back through some of the business books that we study over at the vault. Why? Because a lot of the times it's really more repetition of the system. Remember, the public school system trained you to take good orders and stuff like that. Whereas when you're in the real world now, if you're ever going to be able to pivot, which in life there's a lot of dynamicness that may present an individual with either a force or inspiration, which is desperation or inspiration, to pivot and make a move. So appreciate Tiff Notes for tuning in live, listen, replay. Always appreciate Tiff Notes for tuning in live, listen, replay. Once again, public school education. People say, "Oh, I'm going into the end of the year here." Okay, are you going to do a survey, a quality control survey on yourself? Are you going to do some self reflection? Are you going to do some journaling? Do you have one from last year that you can see progress from year to year so you can love yourself? So you can say, hey, you know what? I did progress. Even if you only did one thing, it was better than nothing. How many people are able to see that progress? But some people aren't keeping track of it. In business, you keep track of it. Employee, you just show up to work. Hey, somebody else is going to do the payroll. Hey, somebody else is going to cut checks. Hey, somebody else going to make sure that the suppliers are there, vendors are there, customers are coming in. I'm just going to show up and do my job. Private education, say we might have to get a little bit more diverse in our education background. Once again, we share what are some of those areas. There's many areas though, of course leadership, of course communications, definitely having a good law background, good legal background, at least having a Black's Law Dictionary, and just always making a point to get reading the Financial Times, reading New York Times, reading financial magazines, so you can be abreast of what are the current financial terms are, and that people are using in the public. Uh, education. And that's where we could almost end it at. Is hey, make sure you're getting that education. How are you going to advance if you don't have those additional pieces of study? So some people say, "Oh, trust Christian and vote." What's it gonna come down in trustee training? Public school, it could have helped somebody out if the mentor, excuse us, if the tutors were mandatory. If you had a tutor the entire time, so you always had a tutor that could mentor you and work with you. And that's what trustee training is. From what we've seen, we're going to end up converting it and turn it into what is called an accountability program. Why? Because trustees just need somebody that they can come check in with often, and they want someone that they can feel like, hey, I fell off the horse, but I need you to hold me accountable. That's one of the things that we've seen. So we're going to be advancing the program next year into more of an accountability program. A lot of trustees, they just need somebody to be accountable to. They just need to set goals on their own, and they need to come in and they need to check in and have somebody that can give them solutions to their problems. A lot of times, that's what the vault provides, but they need solutions to their problems. They need solutions to some of the things that they are not necessarily making excuses, but just they haven't found a solution yet, quote unquote, to overcome it. But they definitely haven't found it for sure. And if they have, they're not executing, so they need someone to hold them accountable. So that's something that the vault provides. It's something that we could say that public school doesn't. Once you're done with public school, you're done. Whereas with accountability, you're ever investing in just staying accountable. So we appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listen, replay. Always appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listen, replay. Feel free to reach out Christian at trustchristian.com so you can get on that accountability program. It could be weekly, could be monthly, could be bi-weekly. We have families that we work with. They come in and they check in once a month. So we appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian at trustchristian.com. Look forward to hearing from you all there. Have that tutor, have that mentor, have that accountability. Christian at trustchristian.com. Peace and joy.